Okay, great.
Okay, so I am Tamara Schweitzer, and I wanted to say how grateful I am to be here tonight at City's Bookshop and to be in conversation with my friend Kalina. I've actually been to many, many events here, and every time I come, it really reminds me of the power of the book community and how important it is to have a welcoming place where anyone can go to find connection. And that actually is so synergistic with Kalina's book because her whole message is in seeking out connection and how we can find deeper connections in our lives. So whenever I walk in here, I always meet someone new and usually walk out with a new connection. So
and a new book, right?
Yes, and a new book. And we're hoping that that's going to be how it is tonight. When Kalina and I talked about what we wanted this night to be, we didn't want it just to be a conversation of the two of us, but we really wanted to involve everyone here and make it really feel like a community. So when Kalina first told me that she was releasing a book, I immediately thought that she has to have an event here because it's just like such a perfect space. It's really intimate and it really allows people to get to know each other. So I'm just really thrilled for you, Kalina, and congratulations on this amazing book and for it to be out in the world. And I'm grateful to be part of this whole message that you're spreading, which is just, it's so needed in the world right now to really connect with people on a deeper level rather than just kind of walking by and not, giving people the time of day. So thank you, everyone, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
We really appreciate your support, and I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience, and then there's also some new people that I haven't met yet, but by the end of the night, we'll all be really acquainted. So I wanted to start with a few easy, in the spirit of, getting to know each other and involving all of you. I wanted to start with a few easy questions for the whole group. So we'll start small and then we'll get to some more big stuff. So for now, if you could just raise your hands if this question applies to you. So who here knows Kalina or has seen Kalina's Big Talk videos online?
Oh, wow.
Nice. Okay. Who here is meeting Kalina for the first time or hearing about Big Talk for the first time?
Hello.
Nice. Welcome. Yay. Okay. And who here is tired of making small talk and is ready to make some big talk? Okay, great. So let's get into it. We are going to kick things off with giving you a little taste of what actually big talk is. So, Kalina, has a little activity for you.
The reason I was so excited for you to each have a gift bag is because in each bag there's a little Big Talk bookmark that has some questions to skip small talk. And so what we would love for you to do is to turn to someone or a group of people you haven't met yet before coming here and ask each other some of these questions. Sorry, not the white one, but the little skinny bookmark. There we go. And I also have extra questions here if you're feeling brave. Some of them go a little deeper. Feel free to grab some of them. So please turn to the people around you who you may not have come here with and just try answering some of these Big Talk questions. See what comes out. Cute. We should do it too, since we're being recorded. All right, Tamara. Okay. I'm going to grab a few. All right. Ooh. Let's start with this. What are your fondest childhood memories?
So Jenna and I would make up dances all the time. Like we would just like we had like a box or whatever, and we'd like pick a song, and then we'd like make little spend the whole day like making a routine, and then we would perform it for like our family.
Your family?
Yeah.
My friend and I did that to Avril Lavigne growing up, and it was the most fun thing ever.
Yes,
Adults don't do that.
Yeah. We also did like a lot of type of like play, or we would like play school, play house. We like set everything up, and then we had a little brother, so like he always wanted to like be part of it, but like so we involved him by like he was playing with trucks. He was little, so he would like roll his truck in and ask us if we wanted snacks, and then he like made this like a snack truck, and he would like deliver snacks to us.
That's really cute.
A lot of it. I have a great memory of our grandparents lived in Lake Arrowhead.
In Lake Arrowhead? Like up there?
Yeah. And it was like the best house. And so in the summer we would go hang out on the lake. In the winter we would go skiing, and we all learned how to ski when they like moved up there. When they moved up there when I was like 8 or something. And it was like they had this little cabin house.
And now is that house like available to you all, or?
No, they ended up moving to Austin, Texas. Like at the end of their life, they moved into like a retirement community, and like that has people living too.
Yeah.
And that's where they ended up going.
Do you have a place like that with your own family now that you get away to?
I would wish. We talk about like we all get like a house in like Arrowhead again, or like, but at the end of the summer now with my mom, we have a tradition where we get like an Airbnb in San Diego.
Yeah, I remember when you went there. Yeah.
We've been doing it for a while. We've done it for too.
Oh, I love that.
How long should we let people talk?
As long as people seem like they're engaged, which seems like they're pretty engaged. There's a seat over here. There's a seat over here. And over there. Look, full house. And a lot of people I don't know. Yeah. How many would you say are, it's the perfect amount of people, right?
About 30. This is considered like a very good turnout. Like it's full.
I just counted 39.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 more minutes? I need a microphone.
I know.
Maybe like 1 more minute? We can do another round at the end.
Okay.
I'll say come up with your own big talk questions. All right, we're going to wrap up. People like making big talk. Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed making a little big talk. Does anyone want to share any answers that their new friend shared with them? Yes.
You and I live in the same building.
We do. We do.
You live below me, apparently.
Yes. Yes. We have a few neighbors here. Danelle, Ken, Jerry.
I told her that. That usually happens with that little footprint, right?
Yeah. Sometimes. You never know. Yes.
I'd like to share that this guy said he is most proud of Kalina being his wife.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you, James. I love you. Would anyone else like to share an answer?
Anyone have one other thing to share? One more? Should I share what you asked me?
Sure.
So Kalina asked me to share some of my best childhood memories. I talked about my sisters here today, and I talked about how we would spend hours making up dance routines. And then we just like replay the song on the boombox. You have to rewind the tape and then press it. And then we're like, oh no, we messed up. We got to go back. But then we would do this whole dance and we'd have, and we got really excited and we would invite like, our family or if like people were over, aunts and uncles, like come see our performance. And so we would do that.
And I said we should do that more as adults. Like just get together instead of just having dinner and wine or whatever, like compose a dance routine and then perform it. Yeah.
So now that we've gotten to break the ice a little bit, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how this relationship came to be. And then I'm going to let Kalina share a little bit about the background for how Big Talk came into existence, because it wasn't just a book. It was actually a movement that's been about a decade in the making. And so she can share that story with you in a sec. But Kalina and I are actually met in Taekwondo, and it was a new thing that we were both trying. We both basically joined the same studio, probably in the same month, I think, and our masters over here.
That's Master Kwan.
She's a great teacher.
And Mama J, who just celebrated her 89th birthday and got her black belt at age 86, is in the audience.
Yes. And so I remember when we first started out, I was like a little unsure. I was like, I don't know, like if I can do this. I liked the idea of it, but I wasn't, sure. But I also signed up with my sister, and we were like really loved the idea of like just going for something new. And like over time, very quickly, we built a community in Taekwondo and have learned a lot about each other. And I remember when you told me that you got a book deal, and it was just, I was just so happy and excited for you. And then I just I learned so much more about like what you stand for and what you're, trying to do in this world. And so for people who don't know, I'd love for you to share the story of like that seed of the idea that like brought Big Talk into existence.
Sure, thank you. So Big Talk started over 10 years ago. So I grew up here in Santa Monica, but then I moved to Chicago, which is a lot colder, a lot different culturally. Even though it was diverse like here, I felt like people kind of stuck to the people who were similar to them. And that was really difficult for me. And I went to events and I didn't know where to fit in all the time. And I felt this kind of existential sense of loneliness. And I remember one night I was having a deep conversation with a friend, and he said, yeah, screw small talk. So I came up with the name Big Talk, didn't know what to do with it at the time. And I was studying journalism and thought I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker. So one summer I had the opportunity to go to Germany for 3 weeks to work on a piece about the Holocaust. And to talk to people about the Holocaust, you really have to skip the small talk and build trust with people and hear their stories. And we were traveling and meeting people and being invited into people's homes and government buildings. And as a result, so many kinds of magical connections were happening. And on my last day in Germany, I saw a question written on the Berlin Wall, and it said, what do you want to do before you die? And I thought, that's Big Talk. And I came back to Los Angeles, and I thought I didn't want to lose that magical feeling I had of being abroad and being so open to the world and the people I would meet and creating those deep connections just because I was back home and not in, project or vacation mode. And so I decided to try an experiment where I walked up to complete strangers in Santa Monica and skipped the small talk to ask them, what do you want to do before you die? And I talked to people from all walks of life, whether it was someone in my grandma's assisted living facility or an 8-year-old that my friend was babysitting, or a businessman in Beverly Hills who told me only had 5 minutes to chat, but then ended up breaking down crying and telling me about his family. And I saw how this one simple question that skipped the small talk could really inspire meaningful connection and purpose. And I created this project. I made a video and posted on YouTube, as one does. And it kind of went viral. This was like pre-TikTok, Instagram days, like the grassroots kind of virality where people start sharing it with their friends and their friends. And suddenly people from all over the world were emailing me and saying, I want to join this Big Talk movement. And I had no idea that a college student's YouTube project could be a movement. But I remember feeling very inspired by the people who wrote to me. And I recorded a video on my MacBook to myself. And I said, I'm going to give Big Talk 2 years of my life. And 11 years later, Big Talk has expanded into schools, in prisons, in nonprofits, disaster relief, Fortune 500 companies, our Taekwondo studio. So it's really expanded in ways I never would have imagined. And it's still this grassroots kind of global movement, I would say. And eventually that led to a book. So that's why we're here today.
When you first started at the very beginning, what were some of the challenges that you had kind of going up to people, and were you ever worried that, people might not want to like share some of these deeper stories about themselves? And do you have any like examples of like, what would happen, let's say, if you went up to somebody and they felt closed off? And what advice do you have, like, if that were to, or how did you overcome that?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that if I walked up to someone and they didn't want to chat, then nothing would have changed from if I hadn't walked up to someone and nothing happened. But if I walked up to someone, they did want to chat and we had a meaningful conversation, that could be life-changing. So the benefits definitely outweigh the cost of feeling a little tinge of rejection or embarrassment of walking up to a stranger. I remember like when I first started Big Talk, people told me about how they were doing this thing called rejection therapy. I don't know if you all have heard of that, where they would like try to get rejected 30 days in a row. I never went that far, but I thought if people are willing to do that, I can handle a little bit of rejection if someone didn't want to make Big Talk. But you'll find that more often than not, people do want to be seen and heard and listened to if you have the right approach. Everyone's different and every situation is different. And I'm not saying like everywhere you go, you should skip the small talk with a stranger. But if there's an opportunity to do so and it feels right, just ask the question if you have that curiosity inside of you rather than keeping it inside of you, because you never know what might happen.
What would you say is like a good way to approach somebody? Is there a specific, strategy that you have to help people get to open up? Because I know you're really good at getting people to kind of want to talk to you. And, I think that that's something that many of us struggle with. Like, I happen to be kind of shy, but I do enjoy deeper conversations with people. So what would you say for, helping us to be approachable?
So if you're already at an event such as this, maybe asking a question instead of like, what do you do? Oh, what do you love to do? Or what are you passionate about? If you are walking down the street, I would say go to places where people are leisurely, if that makes sense. So like going to a park or a festival or the boardwalk down here.
Not stressed out.
Yeah, go to places where people aren't stressed out and too busy to make Big Talk, right? So like a Sunday afternoon, there's often people just relaxing in the park. And if someone's doing something interesting and you're curious about them or you want to compliment them, just walk up to them and approach them. Another thing I do is I linger. Like if I see someone who's interesting, I'll hang around and wait for a chance to talk to them. I remember once there was this woman who was walking around Ocean Park or the Palisades Park with a sucker in her mouth, like a lollipop. She had bright red lipstick. And I'm like, that lady looks cool. But I was busy. I was with a friend, so I didn't say anything to her. And then I saw her the next day, same lady walking around. I'm like, that's a sign from the universe that I need to make Big Talk with her. So I just walked up to her and I'm like, you look so awesome. Like, where are you coming from? And she told me, she was so open. She immediately was like, well, actually, I'm just coming from my AA meeting. And we just started chatting and we became good friends. So it's things like that, right? Where someone seems approachable or you're approachable and you just go up and chat with them. And I also, I have friends who tell me that they're like, how do you like talk to people? Like, it's so hard to make friends. And then I run into them and they're like, literally have their AirPods in, a baseball cap on. They're wearing all black. I'm like, of course it's hard for you to meet people. You're not approachable. So it starts with just even the way you present yourself, right? Like if you have a funky piece of jewelry and you're like questioning if you should wear it, wear it, because it could be a conversation starter. You never know.
For sure. Yeah, and what do you think are some ways that I love, like this idea of walking up to strangers, but I'm curious about other places that you think in our lives where this could be useful. I don't know that all of us are gonna be as prolific as you are in walking up to strangers and videoing them and everything. And we have all your videos. By the way, you guys should all go on the Make Big Talk account, and she just has incredibly inspirational videos. So what are some ways that you would like to encourage people to incorporate Big Talk into their lives? And then I'll share an example of one thing that we did in my family.
Yeah, so a lot of people do not want to walk up to strangers, and that's totally okay. But some ways people have told me they've made Big Talk in their own lives are at a friend's potluck or like a reunion or something like that, or at a workplace retreat where they start it off with a Big Talk question, like how we did today with the questions written on the bookmarks. And it's so simple. You can literally just write a question on a piece of paper or have it on a whiteboard or something like that. And you can learn more about someone in 5 minutes than maybe after years of knowing them. Another thing I like to do is journal my response to Big Talk questions, because you can learn a lot about yourself just by asking yourself these questions. Another thing I make my husband do every night when the sun's setting, if we're together, I say, what are you grateful for and what are you looking forward to? So creating routines in your life like that to just take a moment to pause and reflect with someone you care about can be really wonderful. I hope you enjoy it.
So much of this philosophy is really about, it's slowing down, taking time to notice like what's around you. And it's interesting that it started as this, you feeling so lonely. And do you think that, and I'm sure you weren't the only one, right, on your college campus that was feeling like that, but you actually chose to act on it. I'm curious what you think about like the time in which the Big Talk actually got off the ground. If that seemed to correlate with, just this, what people are calling like a loneliness epidemic, and what what you're trying to kind of do about that, and do you feel like Big Talk came out of that, like in this, that it came out of this deep need to like not be lonely?
It definitely came out of a deep need to fight my own loneliness, and it just got to a point where I just had to do something about it because I didn't want to sit in that pain anymore. I remember around the time I started Big Talk, maybe a few years after, the UK actually declared a loneliness epidemic and hired a minister of loneliness, and then Japan did the same thing, which is a crazy position to think about, right? But it shows that there's definitely a global need, and no one is alone in feeling lonely. And if anything, this book can teach people, I hope, it's just that you don't have to feel alone in loneliness. We all experience it. I even get it sometimes. So I think it's evolved over the years. Now people are saying, oh, because of AI, everyone's going to be lonely. Before, like last year, it's like because of the division in our society, people are lonely. So there's always a new reason for it. But I think it's just a lot of different societal factors contribute to it, which is why, I wish our society and communities were set up like in the old ways of villages and tribes where no one really had to think about this kind of thing, but it's just not the reality we live in. So that's why I wrote a book about it. But like I would love to live somewhere where I don't even need to think about making Big Talk, and where like just meaningful, deep connection is just rooted in my everyday life. But that's just not the reality we live in. You have to put in effort.
Right. Yeah. And like it starts small, right? Like what I love about this book is that there's just like an organic aspect to it, right? That this idea that, we don't have to make this great change, but we could, just by having one Big Talk conversation, in our day, that like, that's kind of hopefully a snowball effect, right? And it's like, it makes me think about like kindness, kind of starts at home, right? And it's like it starts within you. And I wanted to ask you about this idea of kind of being open, okay, like being open to the world, and how you think about that, because you talk a lot in the book about I'd love you to share that story about
the let them say no story.
Let them say no story, yes. About, because I think there's ways that we can all work on kind of being more open, right? And and kind of receiving not just giving kindness, but like being open to receiving the kindness that others have.
Yeah. So there's a story from a few years ago. I think things were starting to reopen after the pandemic. People were finally gathering again. And my friend and I were on a walk on one of my favorite streets in Santa Monica called Hart Street. I don't know if anyone knows it. Those cute streets by the beach. But I saw this beautiful painting hanging in the window of a home. And I said to my friend, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful painting I've ever seen. I wonder who painted it. And she said, why don't we knock on the door and ask? And I was like, what? Who knocks on doors anymore? That's so weird. Only solicitors do that. And she was like, just do it. I'm like, okay. So I knocked on the door and this sweet lady opened it. I'm like, I love the painting in your room, living room. I was wondering who painted it. She goes, oh, my husband painted it. He's downstairs painting right now if you want to come meet him. And that was so cool. We went downstairs, went to a studio. He doesn't even show his art in public. So this was a unique sighting. And then he was also a historian and collected history about Santa Monica and just had all these photos. And when we left, she said, yeah, I have this mantra called let them say no. So just like knock on the door. If they don't respond, that's them saying no, but you never know what might happen. So that's one example, I guess, of being more open and hoping that others will be open back to you, but you never know. And then growing up, my dad, who's here, he would always choose a different event in LA Weekly, and we would end up at the randomest events in Los Angeles. But I think that helped me cultivate curiosity and this openness to just, you never know, like where you might learn something new or discover a new interest or passion or meet someone new. Because I think we ended up at like radio show recordings and the Strawberry Festival and like jazz things. I don't know. It was just like all sorts of things as a kid. And being exposed to that made me comfortable being able to just walk into unfamiliar spaces or spaces that don't necessarily match my own identity, but just learning from others. And I think that helps to remember we're all just human and it's great to learn from one another.
Yes, I mean, I really love the theme of curiosity in your book. And I know that like I have an innate curiosity. We both have our journalism backgrounds in common. We both studied journalism, and I think like as a journalist, you want to become a journalist because you're curious about the world, right? And you want to ask questions and kind of make sense of things. So we have that in common, but I do think, and I've noticed that it is very hard as you get older to continue to maintain that curiosity, right? And some people just like have it. Obviously, we pursue journalism for a reason, right? But for those who might not have it or are feeling like it's kind of slipped away as they've gotten older, and you talk a lot in the book about, developing curiosity, and what are some of the things that you can do to like kind of reignite that in our lives?
Kind of what I shared just now, showing up an event that might be not something related to anything you're doing in life currently, or just taking a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon to walk down a new neighborhood in Los Angeles. There's endless ones. I haven't even been to all of the neighborhoods here. And just popping into stores and just chatting with people. I mean, showing up at a book event, even if you've never heard of me, like that's curiosity. And just, I walked into an art store, and when I was at the checkout, I asked the cashier, what's your art form? Because, most people who work in an art store probably have an art form. Or if you're at Zibby's, what book are you reading right now? Just trying to turn interactions into questions. And that's one way to practice curiosity.
Also, there's one part, I love this line in the book, if I can read it, that says, I really feel like captures this idea. It says that it's not just the question you ask that matters. It's the curiosity to ask the question in the first place. and then explore the answer that makes the most significant difference. So if we never think to ask, then, there's nowhere
Nothing
to
will
go.
happen. Yeah.
Exactly. So I really, really love that. So I would love to chat a little bit about how, before I move to a different topic, one of the things that I also think is important message in the book is about how we have to practice these things. And actually, this very much goes along with like being in Taekwondo, that, martial arts is a practice. And when you first start out with something, it might feel a little bit awkward, right? And, but the more you do it, the more actually it feels a lot more comfortable. And so, you've been doing this for 10 years, but like, I just love this idea of, curiosity being something that we have to practice.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think, oh, I can't do this. This is awkward. But if you just try a little bit of something each day to be open, or you just notice yourself seeing someone walking down the street and having a curiosity about them, and maybe this day you're not bold enough to ask them a question, but you think of a question in your head. That's like one way to practice. And the next day you might see someone, you actually ask the question. I remember my friend came to the book launch party and she's like, I'm so scared because you always ask people, what are you curious about lately? And I don't have an answer to that. And then the next day she was like, I actually thought about it and I do have an answer. And it took her a whole day. So you don't have to have the answers right away, but just asking the question might make you start thinking about something. And by the next day, she was like, actually, like I've always been fascinated by dreams because we spend a third of our life dreaming, but no one knows anything about them. She's like, I've also always wanted to write a book about all the relationships and the messy relationships I've had. And suddenly she had all these answers. The day before, she's like, I don't have a single answer to what am I curious about lately. Like big talk's uncomfortable. And now, so it takes time. It takes your own mind processing it and coming up with new ideas too, and sleeping on it, just like any skill.
Yeah. And I was going to say, sometimes we have a bad day, right? And we don't necessarily feel like talking to anyone or, and so I would love you to also share about how actually kind of forcing yourself to get out there and maybe just like engage with someone can really change your mood, and how it did that for you.
I really believe in forcing yourself to go on a walk outside if you're capable of walking. It's happened over and over again where I, was just kind of sitting alone in my dark living room because we don't get a lot of natural light and just feeling kind of down. And then like being like, I should just go on a walk. And then everything transforming because I went on the walk, I saw someone, I met someone, and they changed my perspective. One example of someone I've met on the boardwalk in Santa Monica is this woman named Hazel, who's 88 years old, and every day that she's able to get up, she takes a bus down to the beach and she takes her walker and then she puts on music on her phone and then she stands up and she starts dancing at sunset right on the beach. And when I approached her and asked her why she dances and I complimented her dancing, she told me it's because her son passed away some years ago, and she comes out at sunset to dance to remind herself to find joy in life and to make other people smile, and that there's still a reason to get out every day. And now Hazel and I are friends, and like we took her out to dinner and she always texts me on all the holidays. But like if I had just been feeling grumpy in my own house, I never would have met her. And if she was feeling sad because her son passed away, she might have just also, become a recluse. But instead she makes herself dance every day. So those are reminders to just like get outside.
Yes. And all of this is in the book. Kalina wrote it as kind of like, it's an advice book. So she breaks it down really well. Each section kind of gives tips on how you can incorporate all these things into your life, and a lot of reminders, because we do need reminders. We need that reminder to like get out, on your walk or just like get to Taekwondo. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I'm not going to go today. But then, but
I need the reminders too.
It's a great inspiration. So I want to transition a little bit about some of this really important work that you've done in the arena of natural disasters and the aftermath of loss for people. And this really hits home being here at Zibby's Bookshop because many of the people nearby, including my friend Diana over here, who lives in the Palisades, were affected by the Los Angeles fires. And we know that it weren't just in the Palisades, but also, in
Altadena, yeah.
Yep. So can you talk about like how you got started with actually approaching people who had been affected by natural disasters, and what kind of made you decide to go into these like grief-stricken areas and like talk to people, and how did you even approach people who had like gone through like such significant loss? Because basically what Kalina did was after the LA fire, she went right to Altadena like a couple days later, and like people were standing on their burned lots, and she spoke to so many people, and and her work just is just had such an impact. So can you share how you decided to get into that?
Yeah, so up until a little over a year ago, most of the videos I shared on social media were just what I've been talking a lot about, walking up to strangers on the street and skipping small talk with them. And then when the LA fires struck our home, I was watching the news, like so many of us, feeling really helpless and devastated and wanting to do something to help, but I wasn't a first responder. I didn't have any immediate, rescue skills or anything like that. But I did have this Big Talk platform. So I got this crazy idea the day after the Eden fire to go to Altadena and meet with fire survivors and ask them Big Talk questions to help them share their stories. And then I would also share their GoFundMe links. And I had no idea what was going to happen. And my sister and I drove to Altadena, and we met a man named Walt Butler who had just lost his home. And I was very mindful about the kinds of questions I would ask. So I asked people, what do you love that you lost in the fire? And despite all you've lost, what gives you hope? And I had people just reminisce about their homes and just process the grief through the conversations and just kind of listen to them. And I shared some of these videos on the Big Talk Instagram, and suddenly people all over LA, all over the world were watching them and donating to their GoFundMes. And within a couple of weeks, I had done like 15 interviews, and they'd raised $2 million directly into people's pockets. It was crazy. And a lot of people were like, isn't it hard to talk to people about something so difficult? But I actually felt it was much harder to watch the news and not know what to do about it than to just go talk to people and sit with them and listen. And I think to this day has been the most impactful outcome of Big Talk and this movement. And then after that, I went to North Carolina to talk to Hurricane Helene survivors, and then to Texas this summer after the July 4th floods. So disaster relief became a whole new dimension for Big Talk. It's something I'm very passionate about, because I think when you watch someone who's gone through disaster, you feel immediately empathy for them, because it could happen to anyone. And they all express the same things. You see these things on the news, but you never feel like it'll happen to you. So it's almost easier to connect with a disaster survivor, because you feel that it could have happened to me, and I want to help them because they're helpless. So so that's been a really impactful part of Big Talk, and something I want to keep doing. In general, just covering more social impact causes and campaigns, and not in addition to the conversations with people in my immediate community.
Yeah, and I think that you do share a little bit in the book about, right? You do share about
I think
some of the
Miss Dorothy.
Yes, but I think this is one of the hardest things, I think, at least for me, is that how to approach someone in their grief.
Mm-hmm.
And even like it can be really hard with even just like, a family member. What do we say when, there's been, or like I have a friend recently who, lost a cousin, and it's just like a tragic story. And
Mm-hmm.
we will want to know like what to say, like, and everything feels so sort of like empty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you write about it, it's so helpful to like, how we can, be there for people in grief, because it's such a taboo, like people just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are like, what do I say? But you don't have to say anything. You can just listen. I think just being with someone, like, also I've heard people say, a lot of the survivors I talk to, like, asking someone like, what can I do for you? It's like too stressful for them to like come up with a response. Like, it's better to just show up, like show up with a basket of food or show up with a card or flowers or something, and then just sit with them and let them talk. If I do ask a question, I actually like to ask people, if it's someone who's passed,
Yeah.
I like to say, like, what do you love about them, and talk about the person in the present tense so they can bring up memories, or like what moments with them keep coming up for you, and focus on the positive things. Because I have heard this quote, I don't want to butcher it, that's like, the last time someone dies is when people stop talking about them. And a lot of people say that they feel like people are afraid to talk to them about something difficult, like especially if like a family member committed suicide or something, but they actually really appreciate talking about them and keeping their memory alive. So it's good to always remember that. But again, you don't have to say much. You can just listen and ask a simple
I
question.
think that's true. I think people do want to be asked about that person,
Mhm.
you know, and given the opportunity and
Yeah.
to share.
I found this part of Miss Dorothy, who's just the most radiant woman I've ever met. So I just want to read this one paragraph about the resilience of the people I met from the LA fires. So during the Los Angeles fires, I met with Miss Dorothy, a 97-year-old woman visiting the remnants of her burned down home in Altadena. She stood up from her walker, looked at the rubble, smiled at me, and said, "Isn't this funny? I'm looking at this and I don't see this disaster. I see the good times and all the memories." And so from Miss Dorothy, I learned to see the good times when something goes wrong, and same with that, with grief, or someone who's lost someone, ask them about the good times. Like, sometimes people want to sit in their grief in the darkness, but other times people just want to reminisce. So
I also think that there's like slight shifts in language that you also I would say you talk about, because I think so we're like wired to kind of not everything is so nuanced, right? Especially like when it comes to grief, and I think like a natural instinct would be to maybe ask a question that is not I don't know, not received as well. But if you just like alter a little bit of your like language,
Yeah.
it really can make a difference. Like there's an example in here that I want to share here if you want to share it. Like alternate ways of kind of
small talk versus big talk. It's a little kitschy, but so these are examples of small talk versus big talk. So here, from weather to values, small talk just mean like, the weather's so nice out today. Big talk, asking someone, so how do you love to spend a nice day outside? From work to passion, like small talk, how's work going? Usually someone will just say like, good, and you. But big talk would be like, are there any projects you're excited about working on right now? Let's see, from compliments to meaning, just saying like, I love your outfit, to like, what inspires your sense of style, or where do you love to shop that others might not know about? And yeah, yada yada. There's a lot more, but just kind of little shifts in the questions you ask can change something from a closed conversation to an open conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like big talk is really about knowing that there are opportunities always to go deeper, right? And taking them when it feels like the right opportunity.
Yes.
So to wrap up, should we wrap up?
We can open up questions.
Okay, hold on. But there's one. I really wanted to chat with you because we are in a bookstore, and people may be curious about writing and the writing process. What made you want to write a book? You had the movement already. It's like taken off. And what kind of inspired you to also want to have this book? And is there something in the book that you feel offers something beyond what like your videos offer?
So I've made these videos, and then people have watched them and told me they're inspiring, but I didn't want people to just sit and scroll for 90 seconds, then move on, and then not actually make big talk in their own lives. I've led big talk workshops that are usually around an hour at a time, and the hour is so great, and then people move on. So the book is a way to introduce big talk as a way of living, really, a way of life. And that's why I wrote a book. But it was just kind of like the next step. Wasn't really planning on it. It just kind of happened. I don't know if that's what people want to hear, but I mean, I'll go back. It didn't just happen.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you told me that you would be gathering little notes, and
Yeah.
over time, you had kind of built up these stories that weren't just like on the screen, but you
Right.
had like a collection of things.
Yeah, so it's kind of like connecting the dots looking backwards because I love to write notes in my phone. I go on walks, I go on hikes, I'm talking to friends, I'm listening to the radio, and everything's inspiring. I write it down, and it's just like in my phone notes, it looks like a mess, but it means something to me. So then when it was time to write the book, I kind of turned each note into a paragraph that I plugged into the book because that's how my brain works. It kind of has to like plug things into structures. So I didn't really just sit and write a book front to end. I really commend the people who can do that. I always hear about, authors who wake up at 4 a.m. and write for 3 hours. I did not do that at all. It was random. I would be inspired, write a phone note, get home, turn it into a paragraph or two, sometimes longer. And then it all eventually came together to form a book. So that was the writing process.
Right. And then the timing, though, was interesting because at one point, someone reached out to you were maybe thinking that it would be a book, but then it didn't turn out to be the right time. Can you talk about,
I definitely want to talk
how
about that.
worked for you and like ultimately, how it came to be that you got your book deal.
Yeah. Who here wants to write a book or has written a book? Yeah, a lot. So this is a way to maybe not get discouraged. So I think like 5+ years ago, a agent in the UK reached out to me and she's like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And she had seen some of my Instagram videos and I was like, no, but I could do it. And then I like put together a little package with her. What do you call it?
A proposal.
And she sent it around and no, I didn't get a single meeting. No one was interested in it. And then a few years after that, I actually had a publisher directly reach out to me. I think it was one of the big ones, like Macmillan or something like that. And she was like, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, a few years ago, I have this proposal. And she's like, great. And she sent it around internally. And then she's like, sorry, no one's interested. And then I interviewed for Big Talk a hospice nurse named Hospice Nurse Julie on TikTok. And she also wrote a book. And she was talking about it. And then she's like, I'll introduce you to my agent. I was like, sure. Like at this point, I was kind of like, whatever about the book. Met with her agent, signed with the agent. And then the agent sent around and I got 4 meetings and then 3 of them made offers. And it happened within like a month. So it was like years of nothing happening and people being like, we're just not interested in it. And then suddenly it just happened. So timing is everything. And I don't know what it was. I mean, maybe the loneliness epidemic, who knows? And this was like before the fires and everything went viral on social media. So it wasn't that. So it's just a reminder that you never know. And you hear these stories all the time about people who sent their books around. Like, I mean, the writer of Harry Potter, right? Like she got rejected a ton, Dr. Seuss. So it's a reminder to keep going and that timing is everything.
Lots of writers put their books in drawers and come back to it many years later.
Yeah.
And like, then that happens to be the time. But, they were just, I think staying kind of like you just sort of let it be, you weren't like trying to push so hard to be like, oh no, this has to happen now. You were just like, okay, if it happens kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the things that have happened organically have always been the best things for Big Talk. Forcing it never works for yourself, never works for your work. It's really just kind of following your passion, showing up each day. For me, showing up was having Big Talk conversations with people, and then things will happen when the timing is right, when you meet the right people and everything aligns.
So now they have a book out and you are still continuing to make Big Talk videos. What do you see as the next step in this journey for you? And what do you think about the future?
I think next I will be in the filling the well stage, and I want to travel. And I think I mentioned this at the book launch party. I want to visit places that don't need Big Talk to learn from them. So whether it's small communities or places that have just found a way of life that's just so meaningful and connected that it flows.
Yeah.
I want to do that. Once my husband's done designing the LA subway, we'll go together.
Do you think that we'll always need Big Talk, or can you see a world where you think humanity has risen up and really taken on this challenge of just being kind and curious, and
I
is
think
there a world?
I think we'll need it more and more, to be honest, just with the state of the media and technology. And I think we need these reminders more than ever, because I don't think technology is going away. So to
Yeah.
talk to people face to face and connect. So I think there will always be a need for some form of big talk.
How do you counter this like urge to, or how do you balance technology and the need to like be on technology? Obviously you use technology
Mhm.
for your platform, and it's a way to spread the message, which is wonderful, and that's like, you know, an advantage of technology. But how do you balance that with, you know, needing it for your message, and then also like knowing that sometimes it can really take you away from being present?
So if I am scrolling, I make sure my algorithm is inspiring. It's a lot of wholesome, inspiring things, because that's the algorithm with Big Talk. And as soon as I start to feel the ick, I turn off my phone and put it away. When going to bed, I like to put my phone in the other room. And just being mindful, like when you're present with other people, not being on your phone, when you're going on a walk outside, not looking down unless like there's a reason, because you're doing work while on a walk, which sometimes I like to do too. But just catching yourself. It's just awareness is the first step for everything. I mean, I have friends who like they literally make kids who come over put their phone in a bucket, and then they put the
love
bucket in a
that.
closet.
I love that.
But everyone has their own
Yes.
strategies for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I've asked everything, so I'd love to open it up to questions from everyone.
Hi, okay, so clearly your platform is growing and will continue to grow. And you can't always be there, you know, like it won't be, well, where I'm going with this is, have you considered having ambassadors? Big Talk ambassadors and collecting stories and
I think I tried that when I first started Big Talk, like with college students. But running a program or having employees is very hard, and it's a lot of work. I remember I ran a Big Talk internship program, and I spent so much time just like prepping for each meeting, and like it just took away from it. So instead of having formal ambassadors, where I'm at now is I want people to take Big Talk into their own communities, which people have, in whatever way makes sense for them. Whether that means like starting your community meeting with a question, or introducing it into your retreat, or like on this ride to a sports arena, like making Big Talk with your teammates. But I haven't had formal ambassadors simply because I'm not good at that kind of organization, and it takes a lot of time. But it is a great idea. I just don't think I'm the one to run that sort of program. We can chat after if you want to.
yeah, no, we need to monetize it, that is for sure.
Yes. Hi.
That's a great introduction to you.
Thank you.
My question is, I love the intentionality of Big Talk, but you make these great connections with people, and you seem really good at what comes after the Big Talk. When you connect with somebody, when you want to befriend or take them out to dinner, what's the next step after the Big Talk?
The next step is what you shared, making a bid for connection, a follow-up, whether it's let's get coffee, let's go on a walk, or sometimes it doesn't feel right and you just see them again at the same thing if you met them in a community. Because sometimes someone once told me like a friend or someone comes into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and to honor that. Because sometimes you might just meet someone for one interaction and they inspired you, but it doesn't mean you're supposed to meet up every week. Or a season, like you met them and you learned that you both love ceramics, you take a ceramics class together for a season, but then you go your separate ways. Or Taekwondo, yeah. So kind of honoring what naturally happens next and matching their energy too, and seeing if they want to follow up with you as well, but you can initiate. Oh, yes.
I have two questions. If it's okay.
Yeah.
One, I'm curious, like, so you said you went to Texas and you said North Carolina. When you go, are you working with a program to meet survivors, or are you just sort of like walking the neighborhood? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How you approach people in those situations.
Yeah. So with the LA fires, it was just me directly connecting with people. And then because that helped people's GoFundMe so much, GoFundMe actually sent me to North Carolina. Yeah. And then with Texas, GoFundMe connected me with a nonprofit on the ground. And then they gave me the hat that let me walk through the entry points, the check, because it was right after the floods. And then we went to Texas Search and Rescue, and and that was crazy because people still were doing recovery on the ground. So for like a disaster zone, sometimes you do need a pass or an organization that you're connected with. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
My second question is I'm just curious, is it, I know because it sounds like from college just sort of has grown
Mm-hmm.
and you're still young and, developing all your ideas and whatever you want for your future, but has this become your sole kind of career or job, or is it was something you were doing on the side and then it kind of blew up?
Yeah, so I did it on the side for years and years. Or in my head, it was number one, but it wasn't number one thing that made me money. I did all sorts of jobs. I did babysitting, teaching surfing, modeling. I did a Fulbright grant in 2018, and that was the first time I got a chunk of money to focus on Big Talk, and that changed everything. For Big Talk, to go live in Singapore for a year, to research ways to use Big Talk to build empathy across cultures. And Stephen was my roommate in Singapore. He's also a Fulbright scholar. And that was the first time that I felt like Big Talk could become something substantive in my life. But even after that, during COVID, I babysat, like I did all sorts of things. And it wasn't until the past couple of years, I think Big Talk became a stable for now, you never know, source of income. Stable for this year. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I'm so curious because I lived in Shanghai, China, and kind of all over the world. And when I heard you in Singapore, how do you feel like the differences here compared to Asia? Like one of the things I noticed is people are outside eating dinner together in Asia, and it's such a different culture collectively. Like we don't have big fences that separate us.
Yeah.
Did you find that in Singapore, or how did you compare the two cultures? Between the U.S. and here.
Well, Singapore is interesting because it's so business oriented. Yeah. So I felt like even though it was super diverse, it was kind of stratified based on like what people were doing, whether they were a business person or a migrant worker or an expat. People kind of stuck to their own communities. And there's this whole notion of saving face culture. So you don't want to be vulnerable and you don't want to show like your darker parts because you want to appear shiny and capable. So that was an interesting, and so in Singapore, I found the best way to introduce Big Talk was in a structured format. And that's why I started doing the workshops. Because like you can't just walk up to a stranger on the street and ask them a deep question there. So there I would bring these cards and I would pass out cards and say, choose a question that resonates with you. And in a structured setting, people feel more comfortable and safe to make Big Talk. But I would say maybe in other parts of Southeast Asia, like going to Indonesia or something, it might be the opposite, where everyone's kind of very open and free and outdoors. So it all depends on where you are. There's actually a whole section in the book about Big Talk in different cultural contexts.
Do you want to talk about how you came when you released the card game and what?
How I came up with the questions? Yeah, the way I define a Big Talk question.
Where can people get that, by the way?
Online on my website, makebigtalk.com. But the way I define a Big Talk question is that it is universal. So that means anyone in the room could answer it because they're a human being, not because of what they do, where they're from. And then that it's open-ended, is not just a yes or no or one-word response. And then finally that it's story eliciting. So it could lead to someone sharing a personal story or life perspective based on their upbringing or what they're doing in life now. So that's kind of the way I framed each Big Talk question. And then even in Singapore, we would test them out with Singaporeans versus migrant workers versus expats and see which questions people related to. And it was always the simple ones, like asking someone, what do you find beautiful in the world? Or what's been your favorite age so far and why? Or what do you hope for? Things like that people can relate to. And the questions sound simple, but the answers aren't. And that's something to remember about Big Talk questions.
What's your favorite Big Talk question?
I mean, the question that changed my life and started this was, what do you want to do before you die? And I think what I love about that question is that the answer can evolve over time. I think when I first started it, I thought your answer was supposed to be like bucket list types of things, like travel the Appalachian Trail, climb the Great Wall of China. And then I remember I had talked to a professor that I admired, and I asked him that question. I said, what do you want to do before you die? And he said, have more good days. And I was like, that's a letdown. at the time, because I thought he was going to give some big grandiose answer. And now I think that's the wisest answer, and I get it. And that's what I want to do before I die. I want to live in the present for each day to be really good, because that's all we have is the present, right? So I think answers can evolve over time, and that's why I love that question.
Anyone else? Any questions? Well, thank you so much.
I have one for you that I'm genuinely curious about. So for you, what drove you to want to run a bookstore?
Oh, I don't run the bookstore.
She's a book coach, though.
I'm very much, that's flattering. I am involved in the book community, though. I'm a book coach, so I coach people who are in the book writing process.
What drove you to want to be a book coach?
That. So I was a writer, I was a journalist, and I did really enjoy that. But then I started, as a journalist, you're always telling other people's stories. And I started to kind of get the itch about, maybe I want to, start to tell my own story. And then that really forced me during COVID, actually, because I had young kids when COVID started. And it really forced me to kind of, I guess, reflect on what it was that I wanted to get out of my writing. And when I started to do a little bit more personal writing, I realized that I had a book idea in me. And so I started getting more interested in people who are writing books, because obviously writing journalism articles is a lot different than writing a book. And I am actually, the way that I got connected to Zibby's bookshop is the owner, Zibby Owens. She actually started a media company. And so she has a publishing company. She has a podcast, and she owns this bookstore. But it all actually started with a podcast in which she would interview authors. And from that podcast, I heard someone that she interviewed who actually was a book coach, a very successful book coach who started a company to train other book coaches. And when I heard this woman speaking, her name was Jenny Nash, something immediately just clicked inside me. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to help other people in their writing process. I want to be in the creative process with them. It's still a very up and coming industry, book coaching, because we're not just editors. We're actually we're coaching you through the whole process. So like, imagine if I had been with you, every step of the way, like accountability, really just lifting people up, cheerleader.
It's like your therapist too, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is we go deep and we go deep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just so enjoy going through this like very deeply personal process with someone. When people are writing books, it becomes, just really intimate, very it's one of the most challenging things that you could ever do is to write a book, and to have to do it alone, talk about being lonely.
Mm-hmm.
This is an antidote. Getting a book coach is an antidote to like being alone as a writer. So that's what drove me to it. And I was so happy that I discovered it, because it really brought together all of my skills. I enjoy writing. I enjoy editing. I enjoy being there for other people and helping them shape their ideas.
And don't you have a book idea now?
I do. I'm slowly working on it. So yes, one day.
I just feel like what you're doing is so important. And have you been doing it, you said, about 10 years?
I think 11.
Tiny little, like this little light of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's amazing how, like, the GoFundMe people reached out to you, because you can really see by your own hand that you're making a difference, that by people seeing the videos, people donated money and directly helped them. And I think with the fires, what you're doing is so important, because they had this Fire Aid concert, and people all over America donated money. And I'm from the Palisades, and it was supposed to give equally to Altadena and the Palisades, and only nonprofits could get the money.
Mhm.
And so in our local newsletters, we're talking about like it was people gave the money in good faith that it was going to go to people whose houses burned down and who are impacted. So now they keep reporting every week, well, this like charity that like grows mushrooms just got $100,000 from the Fire Aid concerts money because you can't get the, so there's all this craziness and you really cut through that. And I think it's so empowering to know that it just takes one person. I know also a ton of authors who work in grief literacy with trauma and grief. They kind of go hand in hand. And they talk about in America, and I know you're very cross-cultural as a Fulbright scholar, but that we don't know how to talk about it. And some of the simplest things that you say, I've talked to these like grief authors for my Instagram live show, and it's like people don't even know to ask like, oh, your mom passed. What was your mom's name? People want to talk about their loved one.
They do.
But so you're all these different things, and you're also kind of like a grief counselor. And then I work a lot in the suicide space. And what a lot of people don't know is when people are hurting, people are afraid to ask if they're considering something like that because they think it's going to push them off the cliff. So I am here to tell you that all the research shows that if someone is struggling and you want to help them, bringing it up actually helps, like saying the word suicide.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's something we all need to hear. Appreciate it.
So I can't wait to read it.
I think we're gonna do signing, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So much to take away tonight. Amazing, wonderful tools that we can all utilize. So yes, if you haven't bought the book, we have them up at the register. I'm sure Kalina will be happy to sign, take photos, hang out. Thank you guys.
Thank